So real estate for me has always been something I love to do and I want to keep private, and it's just like the thing I did when I wasn't in the public eye. After I left policing for about a decade and a half, about 15 years, I ran some type of online business. So I started a publishing company helping people publish books in 2008. So I left policing in 2001. I sold my mortgage company. I started a mortgage company, did $400 million in mortgages and sold that in 2005. In 2005, I got into multi-level marketing. Anybody here ever done MLM, network marketing, any of that stuff? I made $13 million in 5 years in it, traveled all over the world. It was an amazing experience, learned a lot about sales and people, and decided I hated it and stopped doing it because a whole bunch of people were joining and not making money, and I was making a lot of money and it felt very icky to me, so I quit. Walked away from about $3 million a year in income. Then I started a publishing company, sold that, got into basically teaching people how to build business online. You know what I find interesting is all of the teaching I've done in my life, I've always done it because people started asking me questions. So I left policing, I started a mortgage company, and I sold it 4 years later for about $40 million. Now I had a partner who owned 80% of it. He was the guy who taught me how to do it, but I still made $8 million in that transaction. Then I got into MLM, network marketing, and built this big business. I sold that, got out, basically gave it to my partner, said I don't want anything to do with it anymore. Then I got into the publishing industry and built a business there and exited from that. But in all these experiences, the reason I did these things, people started asking me questions, asking me for help. So the reason I started a publishing company is I wrote a book 10 years ago called The Most Important Minute, sold 1 million copies of that book in 18 countries. People started asking me, how did you publish this book and how did it do so well? So I decided to start a publishing company and started teaching people how to do that. Sold that business years later. People started asking me, how did you make these businesses grow so big? And I knew it was because of digital marketing. I had a mentor in my life who taught me how to do digital marketing, and I started to scale that business. So then I started teaching people who own businesses how to build their business online and how to create information products. And one of the things I said all the time when I was doing that, whenever I was teaching people how to build these information products in their businesses and how to do their businesses online, I always said, if you in your life have any type of experience where everybody around you is always asking you for advice on the same thing, that's probably an indication that you could make money as a consultant, coaching people to do that thing. So I'm telling people this all the time. And then in 2018, right around there, I started buying old cottages and renovating them. And this was something I did just because I like cottages. And I didn't really want to tell anybody about it. I was enjoying it. We had a couple cottages. We were having fun with them. Then everybody I knew started asking me about how to do these cottages. How was I acquiring these cottages with no money? How was I renovating them? How was I fixing them up? How was I renting them? All this stuff. So I said, screw it. I'll do a webinar and I'll teach everybody how to do that. And that's when we launched the cottage course. At the same time as that was happening, the pandemic happened. And I had decided right before the pandemic happened that I was going to buy 100 cottages. I had a buddy of mine who ran a real estate investment trust, a REIT, called Granite. Granite is owned by the Stronach family. It's $1 billion company. So I was playing golf with him and I said to him off the cuff, hey, I've got these cottages and I'm making like $100,000 in profit per year per cottage. I'm wondering if I built a company and I had 100 of these things, is that something that Granite would buy? And he started laughing and he said, absolutely. And so I got this idea in my head right before the pandemic that I was going to buy 100 cottages. We were going to build this whole business around it, and then we were going to sell the whole business. Then the pandemic happened. Nobody could leave Canada. And everybody who used to go to Cuba and Panama and the Caribbean, they were all buying cottages now. And they were buying cottages that I was getting, beat up old 3-season cottages that I was buying for $300,000 or $400,000. They were paying $1 million for them. It was ridiculous. So I called my agents up and said, forget it. I don't want to do it. I'll pick it up again when the pandemic's over, the prices go down. One of my agents called me up and said, hey, there's this little cottage resort in Bancroft, just north of Bancroft. This was the first place, was called Lake St. Peter. And he said, would you be interested in buying that? And I said, well, I'll look at it. And they had this beautiful little property on 2 acres of land. There was five cottages on it. And they were old cottages and they wanted $1.2 million for it. No, they wanted $2 million right up front. I made them an offer of $1.8 million and they accepted it. And then they started fighting. The husband and wife were going through a divorce at the time. So the deal fell apart. And then that same agent called me back 3 days later and said, would you take a drive to Napanee with me? And I said, what's in Napanee? And he said, there's this old fishing resort down there called Perfect View Resort. And that's now the Hay Bay Resort that we bought, and we're developing it. So we bought it for $3 million and we're turning it into a huge 5-star resort that when it's open, it's going to be worth $50 million. And of course, the couple getting a divorce, she came back to me, she said, okay, it's finalized. I can sell the property, I want to sell it to you. So I bought it. 3 days later, the husband came along and said, I know she got the property, but I'd like to work for you. So we hired him. Now he runs the project. It's so freaking bizarre. It's weird. And then, of course, on top of that, we were doing an event a year and a half ago, and one of the people in our inner circle came to me. She was joking when she did it, when she came to me and she texted me and she said, there's a castle for sale in PEI, which she sent it to me as a joke. She didn't realize that Julie and I had lived on Prince Edward Island for 3 years and we knew the castle. And basically it was 2 replica castles, a replica of the Tower of London in England and a replica of the Dunn Castle in Scotland on 5 acres of land. The 2 castles were actually going to turn it into 17 hotel rooms, like periodic themed hotel rooms. But the craziest part was the property was for sale for $295,000.
Wow.
So we bought that property. The same day, yeah, while I was on the way to the event. Then we bought 2 more acres of land that came up for sale beside it. Well, it didn't come for sale. We approached the owners and convinced them to sell it to us. So now we have 5 acres of land there. But we found out that it's going to take about 10 years to do that project. So I had an agent out there look around and he found another property on the south shore of PEI called Chelton Beach. We bought that property and now we're in heavy into development for that. We're turning it into a major resort. As I was doing the cottages and I started focusing on these resorts, people started asking me about how I was raising all this money and the techniques that I used. And all I have ever done in my life is I'll always just listen to the questions people are asking. If you're really good at that, you can make a ton of money, but we'll talk about that another time, maybe this afternoon. So when that happened, that's when the syndicate was born. I thought that it would be really helpful to a lot of people if I could create a program where we could help a lot of new people get into real estate investing, and we could help people that are in real estate investing but struggling raising money to make that journey easier. And now that's why we're all here together. So it's been a really amazing experience for me. These mastermind events are really meant to get the newest people in the syndicate together so everybody can get to know each other and we can have some fun over the weekend. Now, my biggest piece of advice to you based on my journey would be this. Regardless of what you want to accomplish in your life, regardless of what it is, there's one thing in common with any journey. There's one thing in common with any journey that you're on in this room, that anybody in this room is on. There's only one thing in common. I'll prove it to you by asking a question. When I ask each of you, what is your goal for your life? What is your goal down the road? I'm talking financially. Where do you want to get to? I would suggest, raise your hand if you would agree that your goal is something to do with becoming a millionaire, becoming financially free, right? If that is truly a goal for you, here's the only absolute piece of advice that I can give anybody whose goal is to create excellence in their life and create wealth in their life. You have to become the type of person that other people admire. And let me explain that to you for a bit. In our companies right now, we have about 55 employees through 7 companies. And we have some really amazing managers running our businesses and running the departments in our companies. And one of the things, whenever I've had private conversations with any of those people, one of the things that I hear from each of them when they talk about being in our company and working with me is their biggest reason for joining was me. They liked me. They liked working with me. They liked the idea. They liked the vision that I had created for the company. They wanted to be a part of that. So that tells you that in hiring these excellent people, part of the reason that they took those positions is my ability to communicate with them. And in addition to that, the fact that I have intentionally in my life decided that I'm going to try and become the best version of myself that I can be. I have read books incessantly. I've gone to personal development workshops. I paid Tony Robbins $100,000 to be in a personal development program that he ran. And I did all of that stuff so that I could master my ability to communicate, and I could make sure that I didn't smell funny. Because in creating an environment around yourself, a being that other people like, you have to become great at the first impression, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So if you want to really create excellence in your life, the biggest thing that you have to work on is yourself. Is becoming the best version of yourself that you can. Your ability to communicate, your ability to share stories, your physical presence, how you look and feel. And I'm not saying you have to become, muscular and svelte. You have to create a persona that makes people want to be around you. And if you really want to start on a path that's going to do the best for you for the rest of your life, work on becoming the best version of yourself that you can